Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. As you know, yesterday it was announced from Rome that I have been appointed the 10th Archbishop of St. Louis, Missouri. I had learned 2 weeks ago from the papal nuncio in the United States, and I must admit that I was literally speechless when he told me of the Holy Father's appointment for St. Louis. I did feel a rush of emotions, especially one of sorrow in knowing that I would have to leave Springfield. But 6 years ago, at the Holy Father's appointment, I left Baltimore, my hometown, to come here. I want to say how grateful I am to the priests, deacons, women and men religious, members of our pastoral center staff, and parish staffs for all that they have been doing in making the gospel present here in the church in Western Massachusetts. This church quickly became my home, and I am deeply grateful to the people of the Diocese of Springfield for their commitment to living out the gospel and to working with me over these past 6 years. It's not easy to say goodbye, but I'm grateful to Pope Francis for allowing me to remain here as the administrator of the Springfield Diocese until I actually am installed in St. Louis on August the 25th. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or any? And thank you, thank you.
What do you feel your legacy is in Springfield as you remain?
Well, over these past 6 years, as I reflect on the different decisions that I've had to make, one was the very, very difficult decision to combine Cathedral High School and Holyoke High School into Pope Francis High School, or prep school. So that was one of the most difficult decisions that I've had to make in my life. And I said after that, I pray that I never am put in a position like that again. But I think that what has emerged has shown to be a good direction, right decision for secondary education here in the Diocese of Springfield. So I find that would be one of my legacies. One of the great joys that I've had here as bishop was to be able to visit each of the parishes, to spend a day in the parish, to get to meet with the parish leadership and the people of the parish. And that would usually be 2 days out of the month. And then I was able to write them a report that gave feedback and a direction for the future. So that would be one of the joys and I hope one of the legacies that our parishes will remember from my time here as the bishop. Thank you.
Bishop, you do a lot of work with the youth, and I know you've done a lot of work, especially in the pro-life movement as well. There's so much going on right now in this country, and we're isolated and hurt, and hearts are heavy. I know you had the prayer service last week praying for an end to racism. How do you encourage young kids right now who look around and say, I think God might be on a break?
Well, we remember that especially in those times of trial that we're facing here in our country with COVID-19, many of our young people have certainly been had their lives interrupted with their schooling. Many others with their graduation ceremonies either not taking place or taking place in a very different way than what had originally been planned. But to say that in the midst of that, and especially when we are pushed to our limits, that's when we know we can turn to God and God will be there for us. And our young people have put up with so much over these past months with all the upset that we have had. And yet, in the midst of all that, they have proved themselves to be very enduring, very flexible, and very willing to continue their education and to be able to graduate from either 8th grade or high schools or colleges and to move on to the future. So that's, I think, for all of us, a sign of great hope.
Bishop, this is not a large diocese, but it is one that is diverse not only in terms of race, but also economic backgrounds and interests. What advice would you have for your successor coming in as they're approaching this diverse community, church community?
I would give to my successor the advice that there are priests and deacons, women and men religious and laity who are so involved in many aspects of our diocese, to learn from them, to listen to them, and that's the way to form a vision for the future. So that had been very helpful to me as I first came to Springfield, and even as I said in coming to St. Louis, I come with no preconceived ideas, no agenda, but with being able to get to learn. So I think that would be important for the next Bishop of Springfield, to rely on the wisdom that is here, the commitment of faith of the people of the diocese, and to be able to learn from them and then forge a vision with them in order to move forward.
Bishop, is there something that you learned or done here in Springfield that you hope to bring with you to St. Louis?
What I've truly learned here in Springfield is that to get the most input that I can as I try to make decisions, and to reach out to people who are experts in their field and who can give me solid advice, but in the end, I have to take it to prayer and have to make the decision. So I think that was a big change from being the auxiliary bishop of Baltimore to coming to be the ordinary of the Diocese of Springfield. As the saying goes, the buck stops here. But in listening and getting advice and exploring all that I could of any issue that required a decision, that's what I really learned. Very, very important to go through that process.
In terms of the financial standing of the diocese, do you feel that you're leaving the diocese stronger financially? I know it's taken a hit with the churches closed during the pandemic. And also, have you seen the diocese move more to more lay participation? And finally, is the outreach to the Hispanic community stronger? I know you had some conferences up at the Rozanski shrine.
I'm very proud of the fact that we have ordained a number of Latino permanent deacons over these past 6 years who have been invaluable in our reaching out to the Latino communities of our diocese. Financially, I think the church is struggling because of especially the hit that we've taken with not being able to have our churches open since the middle of March. And we rely on weekly collections. So that has been a great curtailment since we've had our churches closed. So that's a concern. And I believe that's a concern for really every bishop here in the United States in having the churches not being open for that length of time and not having the regular Sunday collections, which really do feed the ministries of the parishes. I'm very, very proud of the lay involvement of people in their parishes in so many different aspects of parish life who so generously respond to living out the gospel, and continue to pray for that in collaboration along with our priests and our deacons and our religious here in the diocese.
And did you hear from Pope Francis himself when you were made bishop-elect?
Well, normally that's done through the papal nuncio, who's Archbishop Christophe Pierre. So he was the one who had called me to inform me of Pope Francis' appointment. And then he called, after speaking with me, called Archbishop Carlson of St. Louis to tell him that there was a successor named, and that for Archbishop Carlson, who has been a priest for 50 years and a bishop, I believe, for 37 years, that he could finally accept retirement. So, and Archbishop Carlson is, as Bishop McDonald was here for me, I think Archbishop Carlson is a wonderful predecessor. So I've been very fortunate in both the Diocese of Springfield and in the Archdiocese of St. Louis to have two very, very wonderful predecessors who helped to make my job a lot easier and who were available to me for their counsel and advice.
And what will the next 2 months be like for you between the dioceses?
That time of transition is never a comfortable time, but I hope to do all that I can here in the Diocese of Springfield as the Apostolic Administrator, and do what I can to prepare to actually move to St. Louis and be able to hit the ground running when I arrive there.
Do you expect the Velas report to be issued before you leave?
I do expect the report of Judge Velas to be done and to be issued before I leave here. Yes, I know that it is very, very close to being completed. Also, that would raise another question of what about the task force that was recently announced to receive the Velas report and to act upon it, make recommendations on it. So that task force will continue its work. They have their charge. They're given what they are to do in that. They formed that in their response to the Judge Velas report. So that will move forward, and I think would be a great help to me and also to my successor here in the Diocese of Springfield.
Did you just come back this morning from St. Louis?
Last night at 11 o'clock. So I flew back last evening.
Had you been to St. Louis before? Do you know the city at all? Or?
I had visited St. Louis once. The bishops had their spring meeting in St. Louis in 2015. And I remember that we had Mass in the Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis. And I was mesmerized, overwhelmed when I was there with the, it's the largest collection of mosaics under one roof in the United States. Took 80 years to complete. So it's a magnificent cathedral basilica, and just truly reflects the beauty of faith.
Bishop, can you describe kind of the process now to find a new bishop, and will you be involved in that process?
When I spoke with the nuncio, he asked me to put together a report for him with my recommendations about what is needed here in the Diocese of Springfield, what different issues my successor would face. So that would go to the nuncio. Certainly there would be other input from other bishops. And then the nuncio would send what's called a terna, T-E-R-N-A, to the Congregation of Bishops in Rome. The Congregation of Bishops would make a recommendation to the Holy Father, and the Holy Father would then officially appoint a new bishop for Springfield. The nuncio would receive word of that, and just as I was informed, then the new bishop of Springfield would be informed by a phone call from the nuncio. Good. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you so much for being here. And I thank you for all of your work that I've been privileged to have over the past 6 years. Rebecca, did you have something?
Yes, I'm working on our next magazine, which features the 5 transitional deacons who will become new priests on August 15th. So I wondered what advice you're giving them. They're coming in at a time of pandemic. They're coming in at a time of transition to a new bishop. What is your advice to those new guys coming
Sure. There are 5 what we call transitional deacons. They've been ordained deacons last year. They were scheduled to be ordained priests on June the 6th, but that date, because of the COVID-19 virus, has been moved to August the 15th. And they have received great training in the seminary, solid basis for their beginning of priesthood. So I would advise them to use the great training that they've had, the skills that they've had, and they have worked with the priest of our diocese over these past months, so they've seen how to live stream masses and what has been done to prepare our churches to open. So I think they have a very solid base in which to begin their priestly ministry, even if it's not in what we would consider the most optimum of times. Well, thanks again, and I thank you for all of your work with me over the past 6 years. It's really been a pleasure to work with you, and I'm sure that we'll see each other again time to time over the next 2 months before I leave for St. Louis. So thanks so much. Thank you.